Hello. So let's talk about price ceilings, binding price ceilings. So here I have price, quantity axis, okay? In purple here I have my demand equation, and in orange here I have my supply. So the supply is quite inelastic. Big changes in prices almost don't change the quantity supplied, okay? So in this case, we had initially this point here as the market equilibrium, P star, Q star. Now the government introduces a price ceiling. A price ceiling is a form of price control in which the government says it's illegal to sell the product by more than this given price. The government chooses a particular price. Okay, so in this case I'm thinking about this price is the price ceiling because this is below the market price equilibrium, it's binding. So it will impact the economy. If it's not binding, nothing happens, okay? But in here is binding, and therefore by this price, my supply will be this much, this distance here. With this price ceiling, my demand will be this. So the demand is this big, the supply is this big, so this is a shortage, okay? Lots of consumers will not be able to get the good. So big queues, problems, huh? In terms of welfare, what happens? Well, you are selling actually this QC quantity here, a little bit less than before. And before the introduction of the price ceiling, the consumer surplus would be this area of this triangle here, okay? After the introduction, now the consumers can buy by this price, right? But they have less quantity, so it's going to be the area from here to here to here to here, okay? So in comparing with the previous area, we have extra this rectangle, okay, and we lose this red triangle, this little triangle here. So what we gain is more than what we lose, and therefore the consumer surplus is going up. So if the supply is relatively inelastic with respect to the demand, the consumer surplus actually goes up. So you could potentially justify a price ceiling if the intention of the government is really to help consumers. It could be a good thing. Of course, the welfare goes down. You introduce deadweight loss. Okay, so yeah. Now let's analyze this case here, right? It's a similar story. Okay, price quantity. We have in orange here the supply, which is a relative elastic supply. Small changes in price make a big change in the supplied quantity. We have the demand here in purple. This point here is the market equilibrium, Q star and P star, before the introduction of the price ceiling. And then the government sets this level here, this straight line here, a price ceiling. This height here is smaller than the equilibrium price, therefore it's a binding price ceiling. It will have an impact in the market. By this price here, this much here, this from here to here, is the supply. But the demand at this price is all the way here. So there's a big shortage. Okay? There's a shortage. So this is the demand, this is the supply after the introduction of the price ceiling, and that's the difference between the supply minus the demand minus the supply. It's the shortage. Lots of consumers trying to buy the good, but they cannot because only a few goods are available. Supply is quite small. Okay, in terms of welfare, let's try to analyze. Before the introduction of the price ceiling, the consumer surplus was the area from here to here to here. Okay, was the area of this triangle here. After the introduction of the price ceiling, of the binding price ceiling, we have only this quantity here. and producers pay less than before. Instead of paying this much, they pay this much. So it will be the area from here, of the trapezoid, from here to here, to here, to here. Okay? Comparing with the previous area, we are gaining the area of this rectangle here, but we are losing the area of this red triangle here. I put a negative. So we are losing more than we are gaining. Visually, this area of this triangle here is much bigger than the area of this little rectangle. Therefore, the consumer surplus now is going down. We know that in all cases, the producer surplus goes down for sure, but the consumer surplus could go up or could go down. Depends on the relative elasticities of the demand and the supply. And here I'm showing the two cases. If the supply is relatively inelastic and the demand is more elastic, okay, then the demand can react more strongly. The consumer surplus, the consumers are sort of the strong side of the market, and the consumer surplus can increase if you introduce a binding price ceiling. It's possible, okay? But if this supply is more elastic and the demand is kind of not so elastic, if the supply is relatively more elastic than the demand, then the supply, the producers are kind of the stronger side in the market here. And if you try to help consumers by introducing a price ceiling, the result is a disaster, okay? The result is a disaster. The consumer surplus will go down, for sure. So in all cases, the producer surplus goes down. In all cases, the welfare goes down. There's deadweight loss. But here, everybody loses, even the consumer side. Okay. While in this situation, at least the consumer surplus goes down. Yes, fewer consumers will be able to buy the good, but those who buy, they can make bigger individual surplus, and therefore, as a group, the consumer surplus increases in this situation. Okay? That's it for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.